Howdy folks, welcome to the third chapter in my little rundown of the Godzilla series. Last time, we checked out both the awesome Heisei series of Godzilla films, as well as the first US attempt to recreate the iconic kaiju. Now, we head straight into the fallout of that very attempt as we dive headfirst into the Millennium series. After the absolute savaging that Columbia's Godzilla film received, Toho Studios knew that they needed to return Godzilla to its roots, with a big, hulking, menacing, godlike monster portrayed by a man in a suit. This resulted in Godzilla 2000, a return to form and an excellent film, bringing a childlike sense of wonder to the proceedings, as we follow a father-daughter pair of Godzilla chasers, think storm chasers from the film Twister, as they try to discover more about this monster, whilst at the same time an alien life form comes down to Earth to do what aliens do in any Godzilla film: destroy stuff until we get a final climactic confrontation between the two monsters. It's a fun film, with Auger being a very unique monster that is only let down by a few effects shots and the now trademark for the series pacing issues. It received a cinematic release in America to very confused audiences who believed it to be a sequel to the Columbia film. Godzilla 2000 was a reboot of sorts for the franchise, once again only acknowledging the first film as having happened, which would become the standard practice for the Millennium series, as the next film, Godzilla vs. Megaguirus, also features this approach, now set in an alternate timeline where nuclear research was outlawed after the initial Godzilla's rampage. We are treated to a very mixed film, which starts out awesome and flows really well, building up a nice, menacing, surreal atmosphere as Tokyo floods and becomes infested with giant bugs from an alternate dimension. However, when we get to the big bad bug, the film kind of gets dull. We have a strong human story, however, running throughout, with Kiriko Sugimori wanting revenge on Godzilla for the death of her comrades during a previous attack, which helps keep us interested throughout the film. Where previous films simply treated Godzilla as a radioactive mutated monster, the next film presents it as the embodiment of the angry souls killed during the Pacific War, bringing down its vengeance on Japan. All that stands in its way are three guardian monsters: Baragon, Mothra, and King Ghidorah. Of course, this film is GMK, Giant Monsters All-Out Attack. GMK is a very controversial film amongst the Godzilla fandom, with the role reversal of Ghidorah, now a heroic monster, protecting Earth from the sheer destruction brought about by the most evil incarnation of Godzilla yet. However, if you look past this and see it as a standalone interpretation, it is easily one of the best in the series, and one of the few that even non-kaiju fans can enjoy. This isn't the heroic Godzilla saving the Earth from evil invaders. Godzilla is the evil invader. Godzilla is pure destruction personified, and it is wonderful. The effects are excellent, the plot is interesting, and brings a new allegorical, supernatural element to the mythos, and everything just works so well. What is interesting about this film is that Mothra and Ghidorah were not even intended to feature in it, with their roles initially intended for Anguirus and Varan. But Toho execs wanted more recognisable monsters in the roles after the previous two films, which featured new kaiju. Continuing with the theme of returning monsters, late 2002's Godzilla x Mechagodzilla sees the return of Mecha G as Kiryu, a newly developed anti-Godzilla weapon built around the remains of the first Godzilla. It is a fun film with awesome designs, interesting characters, such as another member of the JSDF wanting revenge for her fallen comrades at the hands of Godzilla, and a cool plot about the soul of the first Godzilla still existing in its bones. This incarnation of Mechagodzilla is easily my favourite, and the suit just has some fantastic details which really help bring it to life in a way that previous Mechagodzillas haven't. Well worth checking out, as is its sequel, Tokyo SOS. Yes, a direct sequel in the Millennium series. Here, Kiryu is aided by a returning Mothra to defeat the villainous Godzilla in another excellent, fun film which also ties directly into the first Mothra film. The film also gets surprisingly meta, with Mothra's twin fairies warning the Japanese government about using the remains of the old Godzilla. Digging up these old bones again and again will only lead to disaster, or, in cinematic terms, reusing the same ideas over and over again leads to diminishing returns. This was less of a warning and more of a prophecy, as the next Godzilla film would end the Millennium series on a financial whimper, one which would create a Godzilla-shaped hole in cinema schedules for 10 years.
This final mission will decide the fate of the human race. This is Operation Final War.
Godzilla Final Wars.
Godzilla Final Wars was created to be a triumphant farewell to our hero, a celebration of Gojira's 50th anniversary, and also a bold new style for the series. It is a veritable Royal Rumble of kaijus, as we get everybody from Godzilla to Mothra, Anguirus to Gigan. Even Manda, Hedorah, and Kumonga appear. King Ghidorah, though sadly absent, is represented by the final adversary, Kaiser Ghidorah, who is revealed in a fashion that surely surprised and excited many a kaiju fan. Final Wars takes inspiration from American blockbusters of the past 10 years, featuring Matrix-style martial arts, X-Men-style mutants, and big old Independence Day-style spaceships. combines it with a very unusual score by rock legend Keith Emerson and some traditional, though fast-paced, monster mashing to create a high-octane, energetic blast of a film, which is completely enjoyable and fun. Everything is turned up to 11 and makes me really wish we'd seen more Godzilla films in this style. Story-wise, aliens from Planet X invade Earth. I mean, what else were they meant to do? By controlling monsters to attack key cities, and for some reason Sydney in Australia. And the only way to stop them is to reawaken Godzilla from its frozen tomb. There's some stuff about humans being descended from the Exilians and an imprisoned military general, but really it's just more excuse for some badass action scenes, of which this film has plenty. But despite being so fun and enjoyable, and a fresh take on the franchise, the film fared poorly. So badly in fact, that Godzilla was put on an extended hiatus. But Godzilla would return. Oh yes, Godzilla would return. But before we get to that, we need to note that the early 2000s saw the start of what is the most prolific period in terms of Godzilla merchandising, with the existing Bandai figures being restarted with the impressive Movie Monsters line. Collectors were in for a treat as stylized multicoloured renditions being released under Marmit's Monster Heaven line, and suit-accurate vinyl statues courtesy of X+. Not only that, but Revoltech got into the game, releasing articulated figures of classic kaiju such as Gigan, Mothra and Baragon. Tamashii Nations would also jump into the fray in 2011 with their highly detailed and articulated figures courtesy of their SH Monster Arts line, which have become the go-to for kaiju collectors everywhere. Not just happy to sit in collectors' hands in toy form, however, Godzilla also returned to American comics via IDW, who obtained the license in 2010, which, similar to the Dark Horse series of the 90s, focused on various mini-series and was universally well received not just by Godzilla fans, but by comic fans in general. In 2004, Godzilla would cement itself, literally, in cinema history by becoming one of the few fictional characters to have itself a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. Godzilla would also have another major impact in the noughties, starring in a hugely successful trilogy of video games, which remains popular amongst Godzilla fans to this day. Of course, we are talking about the Atari trilogy of Godzilla games, starting with Destroy All Monsters Melee on the Nintendo GameCube, a big, fun monster bash as you run around cities, spaceships, or even Monster Island fighting against other monsters. This would be followed up by the multi-platform sequel Godzilla Save the Earth, which greatly expands the roster of monsters and environments, but is relatively the same other than that. The third and final game of the trilogy is Godzilla Unleashed, which boasts an impressive roster of playable characters, including some original designs, and a more story-orientated game mode, whilst retaining the fun, frantic action of the previous games. Another Godzilla game released at this time was Godzilla Domination for the Game Boy Advance, which is essentially a 2D rendition of the home console games, and is equally as enjoyable. Whilst talking about video games, it is worth mentioning that the huge global success of the Pokemon franchise which took many inspirations from the Godzilla series, helped bring monsters back to the forefront for a new generation of children. Whilst Godzilla retained its die-hard following of loyal kaiju enthusiasts, it remained firmly out of the mainstream during this period, allowing its influence to permeate further underground into society. It would only be a matter of time before kaiju movies would return to global cinemas in a very big way. And I hope you join me for part 4 of my not so brief history of Godzilla, where we take a look at the King's triumphant return not only to Japanese cinemas, but also those around the world, as well as the Big G's first steps into anime, and the reignition of a rivalry between two of cinema's most enduring icons. So until then, keep it real, folks. Bye! Thanks for watching this episode. If you'd like to see more episodes on cool, groovy, geeky, gamey, musicy stuff, then subscribe to the channel and ring that bell. And if you want to be a groovy cat, leave a comment and a like, and I'll love you. Bye!